Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. Thank you for joining our Tenzing and Frame webinar. We're so excited to be here today. So I should say good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us from. I'm sure we have an international audience as well as a presenter panel. So a formal welcome to Lean and Green, harnessing the power of Tenzing, RepurpOS, and Frame to deliver sustainable digital workspaces and fight against e-waste. So we're all happy to be here. I'm Michelle Pelusi. I work at Tenzing Technology here in sunny Phoenix, Arizona. This is our USA headquarters. We also have a headquarters in our EMEA office as well. I just wanted to do a real quick introduction of myself. I'm not really the important person here. All this, everybody else who you'll meet shortly here, our wonderful presenters are the important folks, but I just wanted to introduce myself because I'll maybe be popping in with some of your questions that you'll be providing. So having said that, please feel free to provide questions throughout the entire webinar. If we don't get to all of them, not to worry. We're very diligent about following up on all questions afterwards. So pop your questions in there. We'll try to get to them as time permits. I guarantee you that we will share all of the answers with all of the questions with all attendees as actually. So, and with respect to that, also one more piece of housekeeping here. Please don't worry, the webinar is being recorded. You will receive this webinar via email, probably no later than next week sometime. So you'll get that as well. I think I've covered all of my items. I'm just going to quickly hand things off to our Tenzing Chief Technology Officer, Kevin Greenway, who's not in the Phoenix office today. Good day, Kevin. I'm going to go ahead and pass things over to you, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Michelle, and just extend the warm welcome and thank you all for joining again today. So just give me a moment to start sharing my my screen. All right, let's get this going. So hopefully everybody can see the right screen. So I'll just kick off with doing introductions for today. We're really excited to have the guys from Frame with us today. And I'll just start by introducing myself. As Michelle said, I'm Kevin Greenway. I'm the CTO of Tenzing, and I've been with Tenzing now for 11 years. And during that time, I've seen a huge evolution in VDI and more recently DaaS, or desktop as a service. And with that, the remoting protocols and plugins that come with that, with the fact that we're an endpoint vendor. And most recently with the partnership with, again, our friends Yangzi and Ruben are joining with today from Frame. So with that, I'll hand over to you, Yangzi, to introduce yourself.
Perfect. Thanks, Kevin. Hey, everyone. My name is Yangzi Zhao. I go by Z for short. So you'll hear the folks referring to me as just a Z. I'm the director of product here at Frame. Been with Frame for about 4.5 years now. Been in the EUC space pretty much my entire career, past 16, 17 years. It's been way too long. And yeah, we're part of the Frame team, now part of Dizzion Frame. So if you haven't heard the news, we were recently spun out of Nutanix, and we have been merged with Dizzion, who is a leader in the managed DaaS space. So really excited about that, and we can kind of chat a little bit more, but I'll turn things over now to Jason from Tenzing to introduce himself.
Thanks, C. Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Hudson from Tenzing Technology. I've got over 30 years experience in the IT industry, and I joined Tenzing back in March 2021 after having a close 10-year working relationship with Tenzing as a retail infrastructure architect at a major frozen food retailer in the UK called Iceland. I'm a technical solutions architect, and my role is focused on creation and improvement of Tenzing technical content, such as videos, tech support guides, and providing customer solutions for the Windows 10 IoT platform. Okay, that's me. I'll just hand over to Ruben.
Yeah, good day. I'm the Dutch guy in the audience. I'm a technologist, an end user computing geek. Been in the end user computing space, so Citrix, Microsoft, VMware, NVIDIA, AMD, like the whole ecosystem for 20 plus years. Really enjoying it. Indeed, Kevin, what you shared as well. A lot of movement. It's really exciting to be part of the end user computing ecosystem and community. and happy to show and tell what is exciting about Frame as well today.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. And as you said, Michelle, we've got a real international collection today. So let's get started. So in terms of the agenda, we'll be kicking off on today's important topic, which is e-waste. And again, I'll hand briefly to Z for that to set the scene. And then we'll cover a section on Tenzig and RepurpOS, which is our recently introduced product to market. And that will be followed again with Z, who will be covering a Frame overview. And then we'll be getting into fun parts of 2 demos that we've got in store. So firstly, we've got Jason on the scene with covering a demo of running Repurpose live and following an installation demo of that. And then Jason will be handing over to Ruben, who's going to take us through the Frame overview, a live demo of actually demonstrating Frame running on Tenzig Repurpose. And then we'll finish off the session with any final QA. And as Michelle said at the start, if you do have chat questions throughout, feel free to ask them. And at the end of each of these sections, we'll try and review the questions for anything that's pertinent at that point and throw them in. Also, just to add that there are going to be a few polls to cover throughout, and it would really help to get audience engagement on those things. So yeah, thanks again for your participation in that. So with that, the first slide, I'll just hand this one to yourself, Yangzi. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, so we always like to start off, these webinars with the problem, right? And this is a big problem. It's a really an ever-growing problem. So, and that's e-waste. So just by the numbers, and these are numbers from 2019, 2021. So unfortunately, they have probably already grown since then. But e-waste is the single fastest growing waste stream in the entire world, right, today. And we can understand why. I mean, how many times do we swap out new Alexa devices? How many times do we swap out new cell phones, new computers? Every time those old devices are then not refurbished, they go into the bin, right? And they end up in a landfill somewhere, in the world. In 2019, generated 53.6 million metric tons of e-waste as a species. So I guess great job, guys. But according to the EPA, to produce a single computer, a modern computer today with a monitor, takes 530 pounds of fossil fuels, 48 pounds of chemicals, and 1.5 tons of water just to produce that single device. And so extending that life of a single PC by just a single year can save almost 6 kilograms of carbon emissions. So really important to, wherever we can, extend, breathe new life into those devices. And what we're going to be talking about today is how you can do that with solutions like Frame, with desktop as a service, running on top of RepurpOS from Tenzig to really take those devices and give that extra year, 2, 3, 5 years, whatever it may be, to really help out this problem. So before we go back to Kevin, I think we'll have a little poll question for you guys around sustainability. So let's go ahead and show that poll question. And if you guys can provide your feedback, that'd be very valuable.
Yeah, let me just bring that up right now. So everybody should see it on screen. If again you could just participate in that, that would be awesome. And I'll give it a few minutes for people to go with that before sort of displaying those results in terms of how we're faring. So we're getting a good range of participation here. Good percentage of attendees are kindly voting to this as well. Still looks like it's gone. So let me go ahead and close that poll, and I'll share the results quickly. So yeah, so it looks as if we are sort of rounding up well there. That a lot of attendees here already have some sustainability initiatives and goals. 44% with 33% of attendees considering that, and then rounding off at the end with 22% of no. So yeah, good statistic all around there, I think, with regards to the yes and considering. So thanks again for the participation on that. So with that, I'll go ahead and move on to my part of the presentation, which is Tenzig. So Tenzig are a solely focused thin and zero client vendor, and unlike other competitors in the market, we're solely focused with our focus purely on thin client-based hardware and software, as I mentioned, for end user computing. We were founded in 2003, and obviously that makes this our 20th year anniversary. And I should have probably added at the start that although I've been with Tenzig for 11 years, I'm about 25 years in IT. So I'm almost a veteran myself, I think. And as Michelle mentioned, our corporate HQ is in Phoenix, Arizona, and our UK headquarters is in Leicestershire, England. And finally say that it's sunny here and has been for 3 weeks or so. So really enjoying the summer weather. So we offer a wide range of thin client-based hardware, and that includes the traditional small form factors that thin clients are famous for, as well as in the last couple of years, we've introduced some laptop-based thin clients, as well as all-in-one monitors. We also lead via our Linux-based small footprint operating system, which is obviously topical for today. And this is designed to run on obviously our thin client-based hardware, as well as PCs, thin clients, and laptops as well. And with that, we offer a 100% free management tool called Tenzig Manager. And this plus our operating systems and complementary software features are all developed in-house by our R&D team. So the compelling story behind Tenzig, and especially in these days of complex subscriptions and licenses, is that Tenzig have a really simple and easy to understand business model. So there's some important call outs here. Firstly is our free hassle-free demonstration program, and that includes both our hardware, as in our thin clients and software, our free management tool, whether you're managing 1, 10 or thousands of devices, and that also importantly includes remote cloud management for your distributed workforce. And our team is market leading, where we offer a truly personal touch, including free access to technical support, product training, and essentially help at every step, whether it's POC or through the life cycle of the product. And these are some compelling messages that customers choose us and remain with Tenzig for their journey due to our fantastic and market leading level of service that we provide. So to really go with again the sustainability message that Z set the scene for earlier. And as mentioned earlier, Tenzig have been in business for 20 years. And during that time, as I say, we've seen a huge change in the market and almost honestly a complete evolution in some respects. And we'll be covering a key part of this again as far as sustainability and how Tenzig are able to respond to customers' needs on this same topic. And don't worry, I will be introducing other parts of this slide in a moment. So sustainability, again, is a topic which is coming up more and more frequently in discussions with our end users and partners. And whilst it's a topic we don't necessarily have time to deep dive into today, I do want to emphasize the key topic that it relates to as far as Tenzig, which is around either replacing or repurposing client hardware. And Tenzig are very fortunate here that we can play into both sides as required, dependent on businesses' needs. And, whilst many businesses see a compelling reason to hold on to existing hardware, again, to reduce the waste and as well as environmental factors associated with the manufacture of new hardware, we have seen actually a trend and an uptick from certain sectors such as healthcare or government, where there is key focus on actually procuring new hardware, which runs on reduced energy consumption, as well as ideally running for longer periods of time to, again, ultimately reduce that e-waste. And this is normally due to sort of those sectors being offered grants from either local or national government that, again, have those sustainability efforts. And again, to reduce CO2 emissions based on reduced energy, as well as energy usage within those facilities. So again, that key message of replacing relates back to really one of the main historic benefits of thin clients, which again has come full circle, especially in Europe, where we've seen an unprecedented increase in energy costs, is actually in replacing existing hardware for thin clients based on their low energy consumption. And a thin client typically requires 6 to 10 watts of energy versus 50 to 120 of a sort of modern PC or laptop counterpart. And as mentioned, some verticals are rewarded for those green credentials. So since thin clients are built with energy efficiency and passive cooling as a priority, and the parts and components are built with long life in mind. So with that, their typical mean time before failure, as stated, is about 14 years. And that obviously way exceeds that of PC and laptop counterparts. So you've got the argument of extending existing assets as much as you can, as well as when you do replace, or you're forced to replace, that you replace it with something that does have a longer life cycle than that of typical other counterparts. And then, as Z mentioned, the theme for today is really on repurposing hardware, and that makes for as compelling story, and that's what Tenzig have spent the last couple of years really sort of moving towards. And I'm not talking here about reducing budget by extending the life of hardware, but again, a company's initiative to try and impact on the reduce of e-waste. So again, as will be covered by Z and Ruben on the frame side of things, this story is about providing the same lightweight, secure Linux operating system that's used initially for our thin client hardware, but now also on general purpose hardware, such as, again, PCs and laptops, and actually even third-party thin clients. So what we have seen, and actually Ruben wrote an awesome blog about, is where a compelling story where a customer can say move from a legacy VDI solution and actually retain their investment in those thin clients that they maybe bought 10 years ago, but repurpose them with a modern lightweight operating system to move to solutions such as Frame. And then the final part that we see as relevant in this story is where organizations are taking initiatives on reducing their emissions by being able to remotely managing endpoints. So getting away from the situation that we had, years ago, where IT teams were going out on the road, and now being able to do that remotely, especially again with a distributed workforce. Now, just going to touch quickly on our software at a glance. So it's really broke into a few key components. So NOS is our Linux-based singular platform, which is built with mind for a singular VDI or DaaS platform, which is Linux-based. We then have PeakOS, which basically builds on this same architecture, but is designed to support multiple VDI and DaaS solutions out of one OS, as well as adding browsers such as Chrome and Firefox, where the OS can be used to leverage web apps, as well as perhaps published apps for that sort of scenario. And then where PeakOS is designed to run specifically on the Tenzig thin client hardware, that's again then extended to Repurpose, which is designed to, again, run on that third-party hardware I mentioned. For Windows 10 IoT, Tenzig do also offer that specifically on our own hardware. For, again, those sort of fringe use cases where a customer may want to run specifically a Windows-based app, or something perhaps in Edge browser that obviously is featured in Windows 10 IoT. And then last but not least is the Tenzig Manager. And this, as mentioned, is offered completely free with every Tenzig endpoint, and that's there to enable automatic configuration, ongoing management, and updates. And this tool is instrumental in any deployment. I haven't got a great deal of time to deep dive into our OS, and you'll again be seeing that in action. But there's a couple of pertinent points I do want to call out here. And this is the fact that Tenzig have been on a journey this past 2 to 3 years in terms of consolidating these Linux OSs, those three flavors that I mentioned, into a singular branch. And the vision here was to offer the same unified look and feel, whether you're running our OS on our own hardware or third-party hardware, and that includes the same experience as far as the management tool. There's a few priorities here, including security and vulnerability threats that is called out, as well as partner integration with partners, again, such as Frame, to make it quick and easy for us to support these solutions. So we've taken the initiative to align ourselves to Ubuntu, the long-term support model, where we're based currently on 20.04 and plan to go to 22.04 over the summer. And again, it's been taking us to great strides to consolidate those three into a singular platform and benefit all of our customers, new and old. And again, you'll see this OS in action later with Jason. So I just want to start to close this off now before I hand to Z by talking a little bit more about Repurpose. So as you can see, it can be installed onto x86 hardware. You can see it has really modest requirements, again, based on its lightweight architecture and the fact that it was based initially on thin client hardware. The OS can be deployed in a variety of scenarios, so you can run it live off of a USB flash drive, as well as installing it over the top of any existing operating systems, so you can counter to, say, hot desk as well as fixed locations. And you can also do bulk deployment, again, through the Tenzig Manager, as you would with our own hardware. And then some added benefits that we add against competitive solutions is a really simplified licensing model. So we offer a perpetual license, which with it wraps in 1 year of software support. And importantly, that license is transferable. So it doesn't have to be fixed or registered to any particular hardware, which really makes it easy to move it around as again, perhaps as hardware does eventually get retired. And again, it all falls under the same umbrella of the fact that it's managed through Tenzig Manager, as well as through a single vendor, which is really attractive at the moment for customers who want to go to a single source in terms of acquiring both hardware and software, and a single stop in terms of support. There is a link on the slide here where you can download RepurpOS for free to set up a free trial. And then again, just to close out, talking about the recent Tenzig and Frame partnership, which we're here today to, we're all here today to cover this. So all of our thin clients, both our Linux-based and Windows-based endpoints, are validated for Frame app, as well as through the browser solution, and it's a joint validated solution, as well as, again, the repurposing software that we're here demonstrating today. And again, you can use the Tenzig Manager then to jointly manage that solution end to end. So with that, I'll hand over to you, Z. I'll give presenter controls to yourself.
Perfect. Great job, Kevin.
All right, you're in control.
Do we want to do one more poll before we get started, or after? What's the? Let's do it after.
This one. Yeah, let's do it after. Yeah, I think we're good.
Sounds good. All right, you should be able to see my screen, okay?
Yeah, all good. All good, Z.
Perfect.
Good. Yep.
Yeah, so I'll just take a few minutes of your time, everyone, to talk about Frame. Just a good overview of Frame. So Frame is a hybrid multi-cloud desktop as a service solution, really enabling our customers to deliver your virtual apps, desktops, whether Windows or Linux, to pretty much any device, right, including Tenzig, PeakOS, RepurpOS, and that's what we're here to talk about. But just kind of a brief overview in terms of where Frame came from. There's a lot of players in this space when it comes to desktop as a service. We want to kind of talk about what makes us unique. We've been around for a decade now. We were founded back in 2012. We were the first desktop as a service solution on the market, standardizing on H.264. We're actually the first VDI DaaS solution to do so as well. And we launched basically the same day that AWS launched their first GPU-powered instance, GT2X Large, back in 2013. And that's when we went live. And really, in the very early years of Frame, we really focused around ISV use cases, to working with Adobe and Autodesk and SolidWorks, ANSYS, to deliver high, really premium, high graphics, 3D CAD design software to basically any device with a browser. And that was really the initial intent of Frame. Went live in 2015 in terms of GA. And then we started adding support for additional cloud providers, and that included adding support for Azure in 2016. We were acquired by Nutanix to really scale out Frame and to become an enterprise DaaS solution and adding more and more enterprise capabilities. And of course, with that acquisition, we also have supported on-prem deployments on Nutanix, AOS, and AHV, which we still support today. And to really round out our multi-cloud capabilities, added support for GCP back at the end of 2019. A lot of our customers these days are moving to GCP, especially in the K-12 education and SLED space. So a great partner and great platform for us to support as well. And then, continue the story of being a pioneer in this space. We also released our new protocol, which is Frame Remoting Protocol version 8, or FRP8. And this is the first remoting protocol on the market that is now leveraging and standardizing on WebRTC. And this is what allows us to do things like in-session video conferencing with audio and video sync completely in the session without having to offload that audio and video traffic to the endpoint device. And then most recently, we just announced this last week to really, the next chapter of Frame to really extend and become, an even bigger player in this market. We have merged our operations and our business with Dizzion. Dizzion is a managed desktop as a service solution, so they offer compliant desktops, with HIPAA, PCI validation, and they kind of provide the full stack. So you can go to them, they can deploy into into their infrastructure, into your infrastructure, and really manage deployment of your DaaS environment from the servers all the way up to the OS. So a different way of approaching the market, and now with Frame, we really have a wide variety and a wide portfolio of both product and services in this space. So more to come there, certainly around that merger, but really excited to share that with you on today's webinar. All right, moving forward. And so in terms of where we are today, so kind of already touched upon this, but from a single platform, single pane of glass through Frame, you can deploy your Windows or Linux, session hosts, right? And that includes, a wide variety of instance types that we support in the public cloud across AWS, GCP, and Azure, and certainly on-prem on Nutanix, AOS, and AHV. And then you can run basically any app through that. And then from a device perspective, obviously we support Tenzig, but we also support basically any device with a browser. So we really try to develop our solution so that regardless of what kind of device you're using, you can have a really pretty much the exact same experience, because we are using a browser-based experience. Even with Frame app on Linux, which is what you will leverage when deploying Tenzig, it's still a Chromium-based browser under the hood to, again, provide that ubiquitous experience from device to device. So what makes us different? A number of things, I would say, but first and foremost, no lock-in when it comes to your infrastructure of choice where you want to host it. The control plane for Frame is always hosted for you as a service by us, and that really encompasses the orchestration engine, the provisioning engine, and the overall control plane, right? But in terms of where your actual workload VMs will sit, that is completely dependent on you. So again, your choice of your public clouds, as well as on-prem or in a hybrid capacity. So really no lock-in from that perspective. True DaaS, so what that means is we're cloud native, multi-tenant native architecture. We're not using RDS. I'll touch upon that a little bit later. But this is a Linux, fully SaaS-based type of solution. And we're also full stack. What that means is that we have no third-party dependencies from the orchestration engine, our control plane, to the protocol itself. We're not using RDP. It's our own proprietary protocol that we've built based again on WebRTC. So we have full control over the development and design cycles of our platform, which really allows us to be very agile and be able to respond quickly to customer needs. And then lastly, and this is especially important when it comes to sustainability, is automation, right? To be able to quickly react and integrate with your automation platforms of choice through our API set that we offer for both admin APIs as well as session-based APIs. And through this, you can do a lot of really cool things. We have customers that have integrated our APIs with their Slack, so that they can get warnings about, hey, your Frame VM has been powered on, but it's not been used for so long. Do you want to go ahead and power it off? You can, they do that to be able to do even more advanced things. Like, we have some customers where they have integrated our APIs with their badge system, so that when they have a new, or have employee like show up to one of their offices and they badge in, that automatically sends an API call to Frame to spin up an additional VM for that user. When they badge out of the office, then that VM gets deprovisioned. So a lot of really cool things you can do to automate things, and when you have that automation, you can really help save on your infrastructure costs, and again, drive your carbon emissions down, which is ultimately the goal in terms of sustainability. All right.
See, I didn't want to interrupt you, but we did have a quick question, or I can hold to the end of your section.
No, let's go ahead. Let's cover the question.
Awesome. James is asking, does the Frame infrastructure layer you managed, host, and multi-clouds? And if you need further clarification on that, you can just reply back verbally, and I'm sure James will respond. But does the Frame infrastructure layer you managed, hosted in cloud, multi-clouds, excuse me?
Yeah, so I think I know what you're talking about. So yeah, so basically with Frame, through our control plane, you're able to orchestrate with whatever public cloud you want to bring, which obviously today we support AWS, Azure, and GCP, all from a single entitlement, single platform. So Ruben will show this to you guys in the demo, but you'll be able to deploy what we call accounts, and you can think of an account as a unique gold image deployed to a unique infrastructure, right, in a specific data center or region, right? And you can have accounts, one account in AWS in Frankfurt, have another account in GCP in Singapore, an account in Azure in US West 2, right? All from the same console, same control plane, right? And as well as also on-prem or private data center. So yes, you can deploy into both hybrid and multi-cloud, all managed from the same exact platform.
Thank you.
No problem. So when it comes to features, obviously we have a ton of features. I covered some of these already. I won't spend too much more time, but I already highlighted in-session video conferencing. So that's really big. So when you talk about hybrid work, remote learning, whatever it may be, right? We're supporting maybe BPOs that you don't manage the endpoint device, right? What most VDI DaaS vendors will require is that, hey, if you want to use Zoom or use Teams, and those are really the only two options, right? You have to download a VDI optimization client on the endpoint device so that they can offload the audio and video traffic to the endpoint device for that, decent user experience. With Frame, because we're leveraging WebRTC, and RTC stands for real-time communications, we're able to do everything completely in session. So the audio and video rendering, encoding, all happens within your Frame VM and gets streamed to the user through our protocol. So what that really means is that we can support any audio and video solution that you want to use. So if you don't use Zoom, you don't use Teams, let's say you're using BlueJeans or GoToMeeting or Cisco WebEx, those are all supported as long as the operating system you're running on supports that particular solution. No VPN required. We have a built-in what's called streaming gateway appliance or SGA. That's basically acting as a term server in the WebRTC world. And that's included at no additional cost, and that allows you to access your Frame VMs externally over the internet. Everything in Frame was really designed to be very simple to configure. We provide you more of a prescriptive approach to really allow customers who don't have years and years of VDI experience to onboard and learn Frame very quickly, and that includes our profile capabilities. So single click, you can turn on Frame Enterprise Profiles, and the user logs in. They basically get a profile disk created for them. When they first log in, that gets mounted to their VM. Everything in terms of personalization settings automatically get written to that disk. When the user logs off, that disk gets unmounted. So very, very straightforward. The last thing I'll cover is AD single sign-on. This is a big thing, and it also shows how Frame does things very differently. With Frame, AD single sign-on, we don't require any kind of Microsoft certificate authorities. We don't require you to configure shadow accounts for your SAML-based IDPs, which is what other solutions in this space require. It's a lot of complexity. With Frame, we do it 100% in the browser or through Frame app. We basically will have your users register their credentials with Frame, and those credentials get basically encrypted and stored on their local endpoint device on their browser storage. And we simply cache a private key to basically decrypt those credentials. So the next time the user logs in, they pass in the credentials, we pass in the key, and that gets SSO'd into their Active Directory domain. So things like that really, differentiates Frame in terms of the simplicity of our design in this space. I won't spend too much time on this one. This is really around security. So, no endpoint or clients or plugins are required if you don't want to. With Frame app, obviously, we unlock a little bit more capabilities in terms of things like peripheral support, and of course, being able to provide that kiosk app experience, for solutions like, thin clients like Tenzig. So that's obviously, super important. Two-factor, multi-factor support that basically, will hook into your whatever IDP that you want to use. Typically SAML-based IDPs or Google Workspace, but wide variety of IDPs supported today. All right, and the last slide before I turn things over to Jason for the first demo. But this is our kind of our high-level architecture. This is in the middle is the Frame Cloud platform. Again, multi-tenant, native, cloud native. And this is handling, a lot of functions within your overall user and admin experience, including the automation and orchestration engine I talked about, cloud abstraction, right? The user launchpad and admin dashboards, what is called console within Frame, and of course, remoting protocols and the APIs I talked about. But we're simply hooking into your public cloud provider of choice through their native APIs to manage things on the public cloud side. And on the private cloud side, with Nutanix, we're hooking into Prism APIs to again provide that seamless experience across your various infrastructures. All right. And then real quick, we have a great partnership with Tenzig. We've been partners since back in 2020. And then most recently, both PeakOS and RepurposOS have been validated by Frame and by Tenzig as Frame ready by our Frame app for Linux, which is great. And also their Windows 10 IoT thin clients are also Frame ready using Frame app for Windows. So that's also fantastic. And from a sustainability perspective, and Jason and Ruben will talk about this a little bit more, but really breathing new life into your legacy devices through RepurposOS and Frame, extending the functional life of these devices by 3, 4, or 5 years, or maybe even more, to really help drive down your carbon emissions and overall footprint. So with that, I will pause there, and I will turn things over back to Kevin, and then I think there's another poll question, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Thanks, Z. Very good. I'm just going to flag up the next poll, which is coming up now. So what is the current state of your VDI DaaS initiative within your organization? So again, if everybody can just please sort of participate in that, and then I'll throw up the results in a moment. It's building out nicely. Get those votes coming in, please. It's ticking along nicely. Just give it a few more seconds. All right, I think we're about there. Oh no, still going. So I think this is going to look nice and favorable for you guys, as in the Frame guys. So let me close that and share the results. So as you can see, we've got 36% who are using an existing legacy VDI solution, but looking for options. Then joint second, we've got just getting started in evaluating vendor solutions, followed by already using DaaS today, but looking for other options. 14% have existing legacy VDI, happy with the solution, and then 7% already using DaaS today and happy with our solution. So yeah, good results there for Z and Ruben. So I'll close the poll, and what I'll do now is, Jason, I'll hand over to you.
Okay, thanks very much, Kevin. Can everyone see that video content slide?
Yep,
yes.
All good.
Yeah, marvelous. Okay. So it's time for our demo video. During this 15-minute video, we'll get you started with Tenzig's Repurpose and Frame and guide you through the following steps. So we'll be creating a Repurpose boot key installer, booting and running Repurpose live from the USB boot key. We'll be creating a Firefox browser connection on the Repurpose boot key. Then we'll be installing Repurpose from the boot key to the local hard drive, deploying a Frame add-on to Repurpose via Tenzig Manager, creating a Frame browser connection on the Repurpose desktop, and finally, we'll demonstrate a connection into our own Frame admin portal from inside Repurpose. So hope you enjoy it. Just loading it up now. In this section, we'll show you how to use the installer application to build your USB key, so you can boot your own legacy devices to either install Repurpose on the local disk, or if you prefer, just run Repurpose directly from the removable USB drive. It's up to you. First, we need to insert a USB drive into our own Windows PC, as this is where the RepurpOS installer application will place all the necessary image files needed to run Repurpose live, or if you prefer to install on the legacy machine. When you first download the RepurpOS installer zip file, you'll need to unzip the contents to a local location on your own PC first, before you can start to build the USB key. Once we've unzipped the contents, we need to locate the RepurpOS installer.exe and just run it. You'll then be presented with a screen that asks you to locate a device to place the installer content onto, and also a disk or ISO image that will be used later on to run or install our new Repurpose operating system. If we click the drop-down list, we only have one USB device attached to our local PC, so we'll select that. Now we need to select the ISO or disk image. So we click the select button and then locate our Repurpose ISO image. This should be in the same folder that you just unzipped the installer content to. Highlight the ISO image, click Open, and if you're happy with the device and image, click the Start button. We can see a message presented informing us that all data on this device will be destroyed. At this point, please make sure that this is the correct device, as once you click OK, the process will format this USB drive. Remember, if you're not sure that this is the correct USB device, then click Cancel and just double check before you continue. Once we've clicked Start and clicked OK to continue, we can see that the USB drive is formatted and the ISO content is being copied to it. This process only takes a few minutes, but we'll just fast forward for the purpose of the demo. Once complete, the installer will display a message stating that the RepurpOS installer successfully formatted the drive and a green status bar showing ready. Just click the Close button and eject the USB key from your own Windows PC to make sure the contents are safe and recorded. In this section, we're going to take our existing Windows 10 device and boot it up to run the previously built USB-based RepurpOS in live mode. Insert the Repurpose USB key into your existing legacy device and then restart the machine. You'll need to make sure that your BIOS is set up to boot from USB media for this to happen. If it isn't already enabled, just go into the BIOS, set it to boot from USB devices, save the settings and then reboot again, with your Repurpose key still inserted. There's a good chance that our BIOS settings shown here will be different from your existing devices, so check with your system administrators for information on how to do this. Once the device begins to boot, we can see the Tenzig logo, and shortly after, the configuration wizard is displayed with the end user license agreement. Scroll down to the bottom of this and click Agree. Next, we're presented with options to select the country in which we'll be using this Repurpose device, and also customize any keyboard-specific settings. If we click Next, then we can set the time zone, date, and an NTP server address if we're using one. If we click Next, then the wizard completes and the Repurpose desktop is displayed, with the shutdown and control panel icons in the bottom left of the screen. In this mode, we're running the Repurpose operating system live from the USB drive that we booted from. But if we wanted to, we also have the option to install Repurpose from this USB device directly onto this physical hard disk, so that we overwrite the existing legacy Windows 10 OS already installed. This gives us the benefit of being able to use this converted machine without booting and running from the USB key in the future. However, if after you've installed Repurpose on the local hard disk, you can, if you wish, still boot and run it from the USB boot key. So you have many options at your disposal. We'll just show you how to create a Firefox browser connection on your USB-based Repurpose boot key. and point it to a default URL in the setup process. Right-click the desktop and select Add Connection. You'll then be presented with a selection of available connection types installed with this release of the RepurposOS. We're going to scroll down, select the Firefox browser, and then click OK. Once inside the setup window, we need to type in the name of the connection. We're calling this Tenzig Firefox browser. And then in the homepage field, we're going to add in www.tenzig.com. We click Save, and then you can see the icon appears on the desktop. If we double click on the connection, the browser launches and the Tenzig website is loaded. This connection has been installed on the USB key, as this is where our RepurposOS is still running from. Later on, we'll show you how to install this repurpose key onto the legacy hard drive. And you'll see that all the current content, including this Firefox browser connection, are all installed along with the OS too. This is really useful if you're prototyping a build and want to prep a USB key with all your config and connections prior to making your final image. In this section, we'll show you how to install Repurpose locally on the hard drive of an existing legacy OS machine. And then we'll remove the USB boot key and watch Repurpose boot up from that newly installed hard drive. If you've been running your RepurposOS directly from the USB key in live mode, then during this install process, everything previously created and saved to the key will be ported over to the local hard drive. This includes any connections and any setting changes that you might have made. It's really useful if you wanted to build your repurpose key with all your connections and settings, and then finally deploy and install to the hard drive of your existing legacy device, all in one go. On the desktop, we need to double-click the icon named Installer in the top left, and we're presented with the Repurpose Installer screen that displays our physical disk to install on. Before you start the installer, just make sure that you want to overwrite the existing OS on this disk, as the installer will format the drive as part of this process. We just click the Install Now button, and the process will format the disk and begin copying all the necessary Repurpose operating system content to the physical drive. One of the big benefits of installing from the USB key is that you can modify the content and reinstall your Repurpose OS as many times as you want. Just boot from the key, make any changes to it, and then run the installer again. All existing content on the local hard drive is replaced with the complete content of the key. It's that simple. This install process only takes a few minutes, but for the purpose of the demo, we'll just skip forwards. And once finished, we can see the reboot message, asking if we want to restart the device. Remove the key first and click Yes, as we want to boot from the local hard disk next time and not the USB key. Once Repurpose is booted back up again, you'll notice that the installer icon has now been removed from the desktop, so we know that we're running from the local hard drive now, as the USB key has been unplugged too. In a previous clip, we showed you how to create a Firefox browser connection and pointed it to the Tenzig website as our default homepage. When we created that connection, it was saved to our Repurpose boot key, as we were running in live mode from that device. Well, you can now see that the connection is still on the Repurpose desktop. And if we double click on it, it launches the browser and loads the Tenzig website as the homepage. We're not limited to using this locally installed RepurposOS and can still boot our previously built Repurpose key if we wanted to in the future. We'll just demonstrate this by adding a local Chrome browser connection on this local hard drive and then reboot the Repurpose USB key again to prove that our boot key still has the same build on it. If we right-click on the desktop and select Add Connection, highlight Chrome, and then click OK, we can type in a connection name, I'm using Tenzig Chrome browser. And then click Save. You'll see the new connection appear on the desktop. So let's insert the USB boot key again and then restart the device. When it boots back up in live mode from the USB boot key, you can see that the Tenzig Chrome browser no longer exists and our installer icon is back on the desktop again. This proves that we're running Repurpose live again from the previously built USB boot key. In this section, we'll show you how to carry out a firmware add-on upgrade to Repurpose using Tenzig Manager to enable us to ultimately create a frame connection on our new Repurpose desktop. First, we're going to import the Repurpose frame firmware add-on into Tenzig Manager before we install it on our remote Tenzig endpoint. Inside Tenzig Manager, we need to right-click on the client and highlight Firmware Update further down the list. In the bottom left of the screen, click the Install button and then navigate to the location of the add-on. Mine's in the local downloads folder, so I just navigate to it there, highlight it and click Open. A few moments later, under the RPOS 64 heading, we now have a Nutanix frame add-on ready to install onto our Repurpose Tenzig client. We just highlight it in the list and then click Apply. Answer OK to continue, and you'll notice the Update Firmware job appear in the Thin Client Job status window of the Tenzig Manager. We've opened a remote session to the Repurpose device in the bottom right of the screen, so you can see what's happening live on the client as the firmware is being applied to it. A few moments later, you can see that an upgrading firmware message is displayed on the Repurpose device and status updates relating to various stages of the firmware deployment. After a couple of minutes, the installer on the Tenzig client is finishing up and getting ready to reboot. And if we look in the Thin Client Job status window again, you'll notice a successfully upgraded firmware message appear in there. The rebooting message is displayed briefly, and then the Tenzig Repurpose unit starts to reboot. And if we wait a few moments, the device reboots and the desktop appears. Now, if we right-click on the desktop again, click Add Connection, then you'll notice that we have a new connection type called Frame that was added during the firmware upgrade process. If we scroll down to highlight it, click OK, and wait just a few seconds, our new frame connection appears on the Repurpose desktop. And if we double-click on the connection, a few moments later, the Frame app is loaded successfully. Remember, everything that we do to the local Repurpose installation, we can also do to the Repurpose boot key. So this means we can install this Frame firmware add-on to the Repurpose boot key, create a Frame connection on there, and run that session directly from that key, all in live mode too. Here are just a few key screens of that same firmware upgrade being carried out on the Repurpose Live boot key, just to show you how easy it is and that the key can be upgraded remotely by Tenzig Manager in the same manner. Before we finish, we'll just show you how quick and easy it is to create a Firefox connection that points to the Frame portal and just demonstrate a login to one of my accounts. Right-click on the desktop, select Add Connection, and then scroll down to the Firefox connection type. Highlight it and click OK. Once inside the connection settings screen, we'll give it a name. I'm calling it Firefox Frame. And then key in the URL console.nutanix.com and click Save. Once it appears on the desktop, I just need to double-click the icon and then click Sign in with email and password. I just need to key in my credentials my email address, and then my password, and click sign in. A few moments later, I'm logged into the Frame portal. Now, how quick and easy was that to set up? It took less than a couple of minutes from creating the browser connection to then being securely signed in.
Thanks for that, Jason. Much appreciated.
No problem.
Just to let people know, we are just running a little bit behind schedule, so we are saving the best for last in Ruben. So I'm gonna now take the opportunity to give you the reins, Ruben, and run through your super cool demo as well.
Yep.
So thanks again.
Yeah, where Jason did finish is where I will continue. Let me share the screen and the right screen, multi-monitor setup here. You should be able to see my my screen with the Frame logo. That's correct, right, Kevin?
Yep.
Yeah, you're all good there.
Yep. Yeah. So where Jason did log in with the Firefox browser, that's what you will see here. He did log in with his email address. That is one of the options. In enterprise or customer deployments, it's very common to use, as Z already also mentioned, is use a SAML or OAuth identity provider. So not using email address and password, but use, for instance, Azure AD. And then after successful authentication, then just access like the full Frame desktop, as you can see here, or just sort of published applications. Both options are applicable to Frame. In this environment, I'm using Frame through my browser. Kevin mentioned it earlier. I wrote a blog post where I converted these 10-year-old thin clients, installed a lightweight Linux OS, and use Frame with these machines as well. And that works flawless. So yes, this kind of old equipment, RepurpOS on it, and good to go. And then you can do cool things, crazy things, as I will show here. So I'm connected to a cloud workstation. So this machine has an beefy NVIDIA GPU. It has enough resources to run high-end graphics applications. Now we're using GoToWebinar here. So we're using the GoToWebinar remoting protocol to display what I see on my screen here. But here in the bottom where my mouse is moving right now, you can see the frame rate. So physically on my 4K monitor, I do see 55 frames per second. So Frame is rendering at 55 frames per second. We use our own remoting protocol, as Z also mentioned. We're not using RDP. And this is all in browser. High-end graphics, 4K, multi-monitor, all in browser. In LAN, but also in wide area network constrained scenarios. Yes, this application requires a workstation to run. If I run Unreal Engine like this one here, yes, this requires a workstation to run. Roughly 20% of our customer base do use Frame with GPUs. The majority of customers use Frame without a GPU, just offers productivity in general. But it's cool to highlight these type of applications, including like Inventor or Revit, like all kinds of cool apps which all run fine in Frame. And even like Autodesk, one of the big ISVs in this space, is a customer using Frame. So yes, you need a remoting protocol who can handle these high-end graphics applications. But of course, in this demo, you also need a machine, in this example, in public cloud, which is able to use these type of applications. This machine has an NVIDIA A10 GPU, so a beefy machine. I'm using AWS, as he also mentioned. We support Amazon, Azure, Google, and also on-prem powered by Nutanix AE3. This setup is running on AWS. Everything I demonstrated and will demonstrate is public cloud and on-prem independent. So it's exactly the same. If I demonstrate this on Azure or Google or even on AE3 with vGPU, same story. I can print to my local machine. I can do network printing. I can access local files. I can drop files in my Frame session. I can use a webcam, a microphone, audio and video in sync, which is important for like pre and post video editing. You can run any application in your browser. That's, I would say, like the tagline of Frame. Let's see, anything else here? Of course, well, these simple things, simple, like just office productivity, all fine. We provide a master image, we call it Sandbox, where you or your colleagues will install the Windows-based apps. Since majority of customers use Windows as the guest OS. We do support Linux as well, Linux as the guest OS, but the majority of customers use Windows as the guest OS. Same story here, all cool, org looks fine, 60 frames per second, 4K resolution, high-end graphics, like as you can see here. But look at the frame rate here, 60 FPS. That's what I see physically on my screen itself. That is not what you will see through GoToWebinar, since GoToWebinar is not designed to sort of stream 60 frames per second as the frame remote protocol is, but hopefully you get that point. I did record some demos as well. Next week I will put them on YouTube, and also will share the link with Michelle so that she can send that link of the user experience videos with you. Let me now switch to the sort of admin side of things. So user side is run everything in the browser. Frame app is a browser engine, high-end graphics, simple apps, client-server applications, webcam, microphone, multi-monitor support, 4K resolution, all in browser using the Frame remoting protocol. Let me now go to this interface here. And since one of the questions earlier was, okay, do you support like multi-cloud, multi-hybrid cloud? And Z answered yes, and he said, hey, Ruben will demonstrate. That is a small hint, like, hey, can you demonstrate it as well? Sure. This is the Frame administrator interface, where you will see all kinds of Frame accounts. These names here, like GCP Linux and AWS EU and EUX Azure, these are all Frame accounts. And one account is able to support 1, 10, 100, or thousands of actual concurrent users in that Frame account. So this is more like a sort of administrative sort of role. We have like Frame is from the ground up, is multi-cloud and multi-tenancy from the ground up. You can see one customer is called Nutanix Demo. There's an organization called Ruben Test Organization, and then there's a long list of accounts. So we have a phased, like a stage approach with customers, with organizations, and Frame account. If I click on new, add new Frame account, I will just give it a friendly name, Azure, let's see, West Europe Production. Let's do it correct, something like this. I already have the infrastructure configured for my environment, for my organization, Ruben Test Organization. I will select Azure. I will select a region where I want to deploy the Frame account. I'm Europe-based, so in this example, I will select West Europe. There are different networking options. I will not go into it right now. I'm able to select different sort of OSs-based images for the guest VM. I will select Windows 10 for now. I'll select a default machine. I'll select a machine with like an NVIDIA GPU. This one here. We are able to support persistent, like personal desktop or non-persistent desktop and applications. This Frame account is non-persistent because I didn't select this one. Click on next, click on create. And now I would say in roughly 10-ish minutes, a brand new Frame account will be listed here, like Azure WE-prod, something like that. It will be listed here. And if I now click on just this one here, this is my showcase account. This is the admin interface for day-to-day activities in that Frame account. So after like 10 minutes deployment, the master machine is created. You can bring your own master machine. You can use our sort of master image as well. You can see account is created. You saw it in the notification center here. Don't need this one here. Clean it up a little bit. So this is the day-to-day activities. There's role-based access control where you can say, hey, certain roles have access to certain functionality in this interface. This is like a full admin role, so we can see all the features here. The summary, the sandbox, the place where the master machine, the template machine is resided, where you install the apps. Frame guest agent, which is running in that master machine, will detect if new apps are installed. Then this list will be populated, will be created. We can do smart things with that. The launchpad is the web interface, the interface the user will use from Tenzig device or like bring your own device with browser to access the Frame environment. The launchpad is like the web interface to launch just apps, sort of published applications, or launch like a full published desktop. You can see desktop here, and I have a launchpad called Design Apps, where different apps are sort of listed here. Different groups are created here. You can create multiple launchpads. You define your interface, all good. Under users here, you define which sort of users have access to which launchpads, or which administrators have access to which sort of environments. You define it here under SAML providers, and then under SAML permissions, you define who gets access to which launchpad. So the sales group gets access to the sales launchpad, and the designer group gets access to the designer launchpad. Super simple. You just create a rule and good to go. And then finally, capacity management, especially in public cloud, is super important. You don't want to spend money when you don't need to. So we build in capacity management to power on, power off, to distribute the images across the Frame account. Like all the things you need to run virtual apps and desktop at scale is built into the Frame platform, the control plane we operate, we run. And capacity management is where you define, hey, how many users do I want to support? For instance, 2,000 or 200 for this example. If I click on save, 200 copies of the sandbox will be created to support 200 concurrent users at that point in time. And the Frame platform will make sure that it's all spin up smartly to be smart with cost as well. Looking at time, final thing, like under analytics, you can see how the system is being used, how the platform is utilized. There's a very detailed audit trail with a session trail where you can see who is doing what, what's the bandwidth, what's the latency, where you can see what is sort of the user experience, and so on and so on and so on. So a quick highlight of like the admin interface, the account creation. Let's see that account is created. Yep, there it is. This one here we just created. So if I click on that one, you will see the same interface. Now this one is on Azure, as I mentioned earlier. Super simple, multi-cloud, multi-tenancy, super simple from an admin perspective, and super simple from a user perspective. That's what Frame is in practice. Thanks for listening and watching.
Hey, Ruben, you want to show that the final slide real quick?
Yep. Let me just stop sharing my screen so you can show it.
Okay, I'll just share that. Can you make me presenter?
I cannot, but Kevin can.
Okay, all right, Kevin. Yeah, cool. So real quick, just wrap on the Frame side. Thank you for hanging on for a little bit longer. We really appreciate that. So I was in a Frame session as well. So this is my Frame session. Again, this is running on just my MacBook. But yeah, for those of you guys who are interested in Frame and want to take a look, we have a test drive for you guys. You can just go to fra.me/test drive. By default, we'll give you 12 hours with a instance in AWS. We'll spin up an account for you. It takes about 15 minutes to get that set up. And you can get your feet wet with Frame and kind of see how it works. You can install your own applications with it. So check that out. And then Ruben's also done a lot of testing in conjunction with folks from AEC Magazine to develop a number of scenarios and testing on different workloads in terms of applications, on different instance types in the public cloud using the Frame Running protocol. If you want to see those recordings of those performance, you can go to ux.fra.me. And I think there's Ruben, like 30 plus videos already on that site today.
Yeah, much more. Like if you want to see Inventor, Revit, VRED, Enscape, Unreal Engine, nice. All sort of in production with awesome telemetry data, just spend like 5 minutes on the website. I'm pretty sure you will be flabbergasted about the info you get from that.
Absolutely.
But I'm biased. I did build it, but yeah, sure.
There you go. Okay, that's it from the Frame team. But yeah, Kevin, I'll turn these over to you.
Yeah, thanks guys, and that was a really awesome demo. I think one of the intriguing things that Ruben spoke to me about last week when we were prepping for this was the approach that you've got with the WebRTC side of things as well. And that has been a challenge that we've seen with the fact that you're shifting that load back to the session, but then kind of removing those complex parts involved in both deploying it and then the updates. So I'm really intrigued to see how that pans out, as well as the other content that you provided. So yeah, really awesome job on that, guys. And I think what we'll just do now is we'll launch the final poll, as well as turning over to Michelle. So again, if everybody can just sort of participate in the final poll, I'll let Michelle sort of do the final questions. And again, just an apology that we have overran. For those that did, I think most people have hung online, but for those that did exit, obviously we've got the recording that we'll follow up with afterwards, so nobody will miss anything that happened sort of over the hour. So again, thanks everybody, and Michelle, I'll turn to you.
Okay, wonderful. Not sure if you want to go ahead and let the poll run or close out so I can share my screen. If you change me
Yeah,
presenter.
I'll close. It's
Sure.
just still coming
No,
in,
this is-
so still got
sure.
people voting.
Okay.
Just give it a few more seconds and then I'll
Wonderful.
close the poll.
Okay, great.
Closing it now.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I was just going to show folks our free demo page on tenzig.com if I can become the presenter. Thank you so much, everyone. Highly educational. Again, sorry we ran over a little bit. And to that point, well, here, let me just share my screen as well. Hopefully you folks can see tenzig.com. You simply go to test drive our devices and complete a short form to get your free demo device. 30 days, no obligation, no hassle, no stress. In terms of running late, I don't know if the team wants to field a few questions for Frame, and there was also a question for Tenzig. Or do we want to, okay. Ruben, during your presentation, and so I don't know if this will help you in terms of timing, David, around 9 a.m. had asked how much bandwidth per user is needed. So I don't know if that gels you with when you were presenting, but.
Yeah. It's a valid question, an awesome question. That's why the UX.FRE.me website was built, because it really depends. It depends on what application you're using, what resolution you're using, what's the configured frame rate, or what are you using inside the session. So it really depends. That's a stupid answer, but it really is. And the website UX.FRE.me provides inside what the real user experience is, like a recorded user session with telemetry data, including network bandwidth usage. So you see the quality of the user experience and the telemetry data, like bandwidth or frame rate combined. So good question. It depends, but I'm also happy to dive deeper with you personally on that question. So feel free to reach out, Ruben at FRA.me.
Oh, fantastic. And we'll make sure you get David's information as well. A question from Bruce. Sounds like to me like he's asking, is there USB desktop scanner support in Frame application?
Yep. Yeah, we do support scanners like different types of scanners, including WIA scanners with Frame app. So that's something we can support. Yep.
Wonderful.
There are two types of family scanners, like Twain and WIA, and we support like the WIA type scanners, like the modern scanners, you might say.
Yeah, and if you also are using like flatbed scanners with Frame app 7, which is our latest and greatest Frame app, we're using web USB to pass that directly into the session. So we have native printing and multifunction printing and scanning support through Frame app 7, which will be supported with Tenzig.
Okay. Kevin, somebody was questioning the responsiveness of Tenzig in terms of updates for Frame and security vulnerabilities and things of that nature. How, if you could just touch on that for a minute, and then we'll wrap things up.
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. So the release cycles are generally split into 3 parts, and it goes back to what I said earlier in the webinar about the way the OS and the firmware is structured these days. So in terms of GA firmware, we tend to package at the time of publication the GA version of Frame at that particular time. That goes through rigorous QA. And then actually a great example that just prior to the webinar, Ruben was kind enough to share a pre-release version of the forthcoming version. And what we did with that was we packaged that into an add-on. So the add-ons are available, the firmware and the add-ons are available for download from tenzig.com. And the add-ons are a convenient way for us to basically take the Frame package, build it out, and then they can be pushed through the Tenzig manager completely separate to the firmware. So that keeps any Frame customers at pace with the native Frame app. You've also got obviously, of course, the Chrome browser and the Firefox browser that was covered in the demo as well. And then as far as security vulnerabilities, we do the same sort of approach with the GA firmware. So we rigorously test that, if I can get that word out, during QA. Honestly, in this day and age, our customers are very attentive to this as well. So we do it both proactively and reactively. And what we tend to do for, sort of 0-day vulnerabilities is we patch those in terms of making those available as hot fixes. So again, they can be released very, very quickly at the same sort of release cadence that we do those add-ons, so that we can send those out and react to those as quickly as possible. And again, that was all thanks to the way that we structured the firmware, as I touched on earlier. So
great. We have a few more questions, but we're half past the hour, and I promise to follow up with everybody in terms of what questions were already asked and answered and those that went unanswered. I promise you'll get that from me, as well as an email that will come to anybody who registered and attended. To touch base on Ruben's point, you'll have links to his videos on YouTube. You'll have links to this webinar video on YouTube. You'll have the recording itself delivered right to you, as well as access to an opportunity for a free test drive with the Frame app and a free demo with Tenzig technology as well. I just wanted to give an extra special shout out and thanks to Kevin, Ruben, Z, and Jason for all their efforts and their wonderful work and just joining up with us. We hope we can do something again like this in the future. Clearly, people were interested. Everybody that joined stayed on the entire time. So fantastic. Yeah. I don't know if anybody else wants to have a send off, but I'm done with my my housekeeping items. So.
No, I mean, Michelle, also thanks to you for organizing this, right? So big round of applause for Michelle.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a great rest of the day.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a lot
Thanks,
of work,
everybody. It was
much appreciated.
Yep.
Okay, have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everybody.
See you soon.
Thanks, everybody, for attending. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye all. Bye-bye.